Hello, Dawn here. I realized that the pictures that were on this original tutorial are gone. I don't know what happened to them. They disappeared. So I'm going to give you a video instead because I can now. When I first did this, I didn't have the ability to do a video. I didn't have the right kind of camera. But now I do. And it's just my phone. So isn't that awesome? So the first method for joining the round is to just knit. This is the method that I use because it's simple. And I do tend to pull the second and the third stitch tight. And you are going to want to make sure that you put a stitch marker right here before you join. Oh no, it would be right here. I did 3 stitches. You want to make sure you put a stitch marker here. So that you know where you began your round. Now if you forget to put a stitch marker in, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Don't need to panic. You do have this, your tail, to show you where you started. Right here. So, but it's best to just go ahead and put it there. So, next way is called slip and switch. Now, this method, you're going to switch the last stitch with the first stitch. So what you're going to do is you're going to take, they're going to switch places. So this one's going to go on to this needle and this one's going to go on to this needle. So you're going to take this stitch and slip it over to here like that. And then you're going to grab, make sure this one doesn't come off here. You're going to grab this stitch. You're going to take it up and over the other one. Then you want to pull those two a little bit snug so it snugs it up. And you can see let me get it to focus. Okay. See it there? Okay. And then just knit. Again, putting a stitch marker here to mark the beginning of your round. And see how nice that is? Now, this one does sometimes make a gap between these two here, and this one. So while you're avoiding the very beginning of the round gap, you sometimes do get a gap over here. But there again, you can snug that up with this. And it keeps this, like this is nowhere near as big as what I've seen these two, the beginning of the round, can be sometimes. And this will tend to close better than the beginning of the round. I don't do any special joining because I just close it up with the tail when I weave in my end. So next is knit 2 together. Now for this one you do need an extra stitch. So adding the extra stitch, I'm using German long tail cast on because that's what I always do. I have to like think about the regular long tail, like I can't just do it anymore. So knit 2 together. You're going to take this stitch, your last one, your extra one, off, and slip it over to the left needle. And then knit that extra stitch together with the first stitch. Like that. And see how nice and snug that is. Again, you're going to want a stitch marker right here. And you can pull the stitches snug on this one too. On all of these, I typically will pull the stitches snug when I first start. Okay, next up is knitting with both strands. So, this one is kind of like the very first one. You're just going to knit, but you're going to knit this first stitch with both strands of yarn, because your tail pulls those stitches. See how that pulled that? No, you didn't see it. Okay, let me loosen it. Okay, now watch when I pull on the tail. See it pull those stitches together? That's just the regular stitch. It pulls those stitches closer together. So you can snug it up really nicely when you knit with the tail. And that's also helping to weave in your ends. So that's good too. I'm going to do that one more time because I'm not sure I got a good shot of it. Keep bumping the arm that holds my phone. Okay, so this one, you're knitting with both strands. And you can do 2 stitches. And the nice thing about this is it weaves in that tail some for you. Then when you come back to them, you're just going to count. See, there's 2 strands here, but you're going to treat them as if they're one. Don't knit each individual one, knit them together. Now, if you want to, before you knit that second stitch, or if you're not going to knit the second stitch with both strands, you can, and let me show you. So look, let's make a big gap between these 2. Now if I pull on the tail, see how it pulls them closer together? That's why this works. Because when you go all the way around and then come back, you can snug it up really well then. Okay, so this one, you're going to use the tail again, but this time you're just using the tail to go through the stitch. So, you're going to knit your first stitch with the tail, and leave it on the left needle. Don't do off jumps jack. Don't take it off the needle here. And you're going to pull your tail through the stitch. And drop the tail yarn. Now, see how it's connected? It's through that stitch. Now you're going to tighten it up. Now, your first stitch is still on that right needle. I mean, on the left needle. So now you're going to knit it and pull this nice and snug. Knit the next one and the next one. So now there's 3 new stitches. See how nice and snug that is? And this would probably be my second favorite, but it's just a little too fiddly and I tend to just not do it. But I do like how tight it is, and it's invisible. Like you can't tell that I did anything there. I really like that. Because that's part of the reason I prefer to just knit the stitches. Just normal, is because I find that to be the most invisible for me. And I prefer for it to be invisible. Okay, so the next one is to slip an extra stitch over the first. So again, for this one you need an extra stitch. So added another stitch. So you want to take your needles. You're going to slip the first stitch, this one, from your left needle to the right. And you're going to take this one, that extra stitch you made, and slip it up and over, and then drop it off. And then again, you can tighten these up. So you can pull on the working yarn and the tail yarn, and see it tightens it nicely. See, this one's pretty invisible too. Again, you're going to want a stitch marker here to mark the beginning of your round. I just didn't want to mess with the stitch markers for the video. So that's it. That's the 6 ways to join in the round. I hope you enjoyed this and that it was helpful. Happy knitting!